you want more?
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
And hey, Todd, thank you for your time. It's a pleasure speaking with you. I haven't never had a chance to catch up with you.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited.
A few missed opportunities, but I'm glad we were able to connect. So I guess on the front end, let's start with the new band that you have, Heroes and Monsters, record coming out on the 20th on Frontiers. How did that come together? And also give us a little bit of background on how you connected with the guys. I imagine you're probably already friends with them, but there you go.
Yeah, Will, I was friends with. We were more acquaintances than friends, but it was during lockdown, so there was a lot of free time. I mean,
Right.
that's as big a part of the major factor of this story is the lockdown. So Will reached out and just said, I've been knocking some ideas around. What do you think about, getting involved? And I was sort of like, yeah, bring it on. I literally was just sitting around not doing much of anything. So he sent over we just sort of worked on a song and then another song and another song. And the next thing you know, you've got a record. I'd never met Steph in my life, although I was familiar with him and as a player. And we never even physically met until we started to make videos for this project. So it was kind of like a bizarre way to make music, but it's become very normal. Actually, it's become a very normal way to make music in a sort of remote kind of recording process. But it wasn't really a possibility 30 years ago.
Right. With that, I mean, like you said, it sounds like you're becoming more familiar with this way of recording and stuff. But what really is your preference? I mean, is it better to just sit in a room and kind of bang out songs with a band, or what do you think?
I think so. Personally, I really enjoy in the Slash camp. It's always, the guys get together, we go to a recording studio and make a record. That said, I mean, a lot can be said about, as a person like I'm a writer, I write songs a lot myself. So it's a solo endeavor a lot of the time. And then, but when you're collaborating, there are moments of you're constantly in a collaborative mode, but there are times where you knock some ideas together and then everybody kind of goes home and works on the idea with their own new thoughts and then comes back with something else. So it's just one of those things where there's no real perfect way. If there's anything I've learned, it's sort of like, because there's people who spend, you've heard a million examples of people who spend all this time working on some very involved song, and then all of a sudden they'll just knock something together like at the studio in 10 minutes, and that's the one that becomes sort of all the focus, is this one that just sort of came together. And I think that's kind of the beautiful thing about it, is it's sort of, you just don't know. But I do prefer human beings together in a room, making music. That's my preference, but whatever.
Right. And, but it has been interesting because you also, again, referenced the pandemic kind of forced this to happen, and, with certain projects, bands and stuff. There's some records out there that really sound like they were made in a traditional manner or fashion. I mean, even with your record, it didn't sound like, I would imagine it probably was, because Frontiers is kind of, they've kind of been notorious for working in that fashion where, somebody sends their parts to this and then a producer puts it together and stuff like that. What was the time frame that you guys were working on this thing? Because I think when you say the pandemic, that takes me back to like March or February of 2020. How long did it take for this thing to kind of come together for you guys?
Well, it wasn't like that. It was more like we had the intention of the initial conversations were occurring during the earlier days of COVID, but it really took a while to get things kind of rolling. And it's probably more like maybe like 6 months to a year into the whole process. So it might have been the beginning of 2021. I don't really quite remember, but even then, I mean, there was sort of a prevailing idea that no one was quite sure how this was all going to work. Are we going to continue to be able to tour? Are we going to be able to like do what we do? And that sort of was the real fear of it, was, no one was quite sure how this was all going to work. But we did manage to bounce back. Clearly everything's relatively normal now, but at the time it was very sort of like no one knew, and my intention was like, well, if I can't tour and play music live, then I'll just start, or carry on in recording and writing process, and that's basically what happened. So with us, it was just kind of like, yeah, let's just dig in and make some music, and regardless of what happens, at the end of the day, we'll have made some music, and we can decide what to do with it from there. It's
Right.
not like one of those Frontiers projects where they Frontiers is so good at like calling this guy and that guy and putting
Right.
an act together and doing that sort of thing. It was actually
Sure.
quite the opposite. We'd already sort of been up and running, and then and went from there. So that supergroup thing is always kind of a funny thing to me. I'm sort of like, but we managed to be making music and just sort of found a home for it with Frontiers regardless.
Sure. So you're viewing this more as a band and a kind of project kind of thing. I mean, you foresee kind of doing more stuff down the way.
Well, that's the funny thing is, I've sort of been thinking about this a lot lately, how bands can be projects and projects can be bands. I think sometimes no matter what you're doing from a creative standpoint, a lot of what we do, I mean, no one's, we've all been very, very upfront about just knowing that we all have other things going on. We're all very busy with other projects, and that stuff takes precedence only because of, just for a multitude of reasons. But I can't imagine we wouldn't want to try and pursue something down the line if it presents itself, because why not? It's sort of
Sure.
It's so much fun making music, and with the right people, it can be a blast. So why not just sort of chase it all down? So, yeah, I assume so. I mean, we think of it as a band. I mean, initially I had sort of thrown out the idea of it being called Burns, Hunt and Kerns. I wanted it to be like a Beck Bogart and a Peace kind of.
Oh, there
like,
you go.
Yeah, kind of a thing. I just thought that might kind of put like a really cool, spin on it. But then we sort of, thought about it, and it thought it might be better just to kind of give it a band name kind of thing, even though that technically is a band name. It would have it sort of cements it into being more of a real band. Sure. I guess. Yeah,
sure. And I imagine if given an opportunity, you'd probably do some select live gigs or something, huh?
Yeah, we're going to Italy in February, so first, I guess second week February, we'll be out like doing dates in across Italy. Yeah, so that's exciting. I'm really I'm pretty fired up about it. I haven't been overseas since 2019, so for me it's kind of a big deal. Yeah.
As far as things go there, I mean, like you guys have your own musical history and stuff. Just stuff off the album, or do you foresee doing a couple select tunes from your previous bands and stuff? Or current bands too?
Yeah, we haven't put a whole lot of thought into that, actually. We just kind of been more focused on the record, but I guess we're going to need to kind of sort of, pad it up a bit just to kind of fill like however much time we are meant to play.
Right.
I don't know if we're going to maybe just kind of like lean into doing something more like some fun covers, or if in fact we're going to kind of like try and lean into some stuff that we are known for. I don't know how much they want me to sing an Evanescence song or not. That'd be weird.
Sure. That would be different, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it'd be kind of fun, actually.
Yeah, right. You give it a different spin.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. As far as like rehearsals, I mean, how are you guys going to handle that? Are you guys going to be able to get in the same room and do that? I mean, I know there's bands that do that even virtually anymore.
Yeah. We definitely plan on like, we'll get out to Italy and lock ourselves in a room for a couple days and then go out and play for sure. Yeah. It takes a lot of homework here at home. Make sure you're kind of like caught up, so you're not showing up and like learning music. To me, it's always, which is not the way I roll anyway. I'm always very sort of, I show up very prepared, and then we'll go from there as far as and then just sort of, then it's just more a case of running through the music rather than learning the music,
Right. Is there a particular tune that you're looking most forward to performing off the record?
Well, there's quite a few that I really enjoy playing. Actually, it's stuff like Raw Power's fun, and I Knew You Were the Devil, and Locked and Loaded. All those songs are really aggressive and fun. But some of the ones that I think are going to be real challenging are the song that closes the album is called "And You'll Remain," and we're still not quite sure how we're going to pull that off because it's more of an acoustic type record. but or acoustic type song. But I think it'd be fun trying to, to discover how that's going to present itself live. But I think that's true of, most of the great bands. When Led Zeppelin had to sit down and figure out how they were going to do, Stairway to Heaven live,
Right.
they had to kind of figure it out as four guys just
Mm-hmm.
doing it right there. So, and since we're not really like looking to augment the lineup with, different players and whatnot, it's sort of
Right.
like you just kind of left kind of, okay, well, we'll figure it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say, you were just talking about the acoustic tune. I mean, so that you could really rework that and electrify it. Is that what you're thinking?
I think so. I think it would probably still be quite delicate and fragile, but I think
Mm-hmm.
that it would have to be kind of handled from an electric. I listen to things like, the Led Zeppelin song Remains the Same,
Mm-hmm.
or the Who's Live at Leeds,
Oh, right.
and there's a lot of like, when you hear the actual versions of the songs they're playing, the production
Mm-hmm.
is quite a lot going on.
Right.
There's sometimes horns, there's sometimes this, or sometimes that. And then when they do it live, it's sort of like the restrictions of just being
Mm-hmm.
a band, I think. But to me, it's like some of my favorite versions of those songs are those live rock and roll versions of those songs. So I think that I'm a big believer in we can figure our way through those songs just by kind of leaning into just being a rock and roll band playing your songs live. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
think people always say, now that so many people are leaning into things like backing tracks where
Mm.
people often say to me, well, the audiences are quite discerning these days. And I go, well,
Mm.
they might be, but I don't think anybody's really looking to, like, you're listening to the CD or
Mm-hmm.
the whatever on Spotify in your car on the way to the concert, and then you go to the concert and it's 100% exactly the same
Right.
version.
Sure.
I kind of feel like, to me, it's like there's something exciting about hearing these slight variations,
Mm-hmm.
because whether it's limitations or just kind of a different performance of the song, um, then that to me is sort of the exciting part, is because the live version of songs will sort of continue to metamorphosize even 10
Mm-hmm.
years later. A version of a song that's been played over and over and over again can sort of become something else in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And there would probably be interesting conversation of like, well, what's the real version of the song, the version that was recorded in within a few months of it being written, or the version that sort of had like 10 years to kind of grow into this sort of, the middle of it kind of has like a sort of a jam
Right.
section or something like that.
Sure.
But I love that about rock and roll and about live rock and roll, is it sort of can create in many ways. I mean, when I think about many of my favorite bands and many of my favorite songs by those bands, it's often the live versions that sort of have take
Mm-hmm.
on a whole new life.
Right. And speaking of live versions, I mean, you've done a couple live records with Slash, and he's been known to go off script,
Oh
when
yeah.
he's doing some of the solos or performances and stuff. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's part of the fun with guys like Slash, is it's sort of like it gets real jazz, it gets real kind of
Mm-hmm.
like Miles Davis is going to go off here and
There you go.
we got to find our way back to the song, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that that's kind of part of the fun of it to me, is you listen to the CD on the way to the show. Now you're getting this version of it or this presentation of it, and it's
Mm-hmm.
it's up for debate whether it's better, or it's up to the listener really to decide whether they prefer
Right.
one or the other. But we definitely kind of have always tried to take it somewhere else live.
Mm-hmm. And as far as describing Heroes and Monsters, I mean, it's a contemporary sounding band, but you guys didn't. You guys give us a pretty good helping of melody, which I think is what attracts probably some of the classic rock fans and fans of like '80s rock and stuff. How would you describe the sound of the band?
That's actually good that you point that out. I think it's the melodic sense of just songwriting. I think we're all like very big fans of just a well-written song. Like, I'm the kind of guy that can enjoy Slayer but enjoy ABBA on the same
Mm,
day. It's like
right.
I just how I've always sort of rolled. And a lot of that has to do with just sort of a great appreciation for a well-written song, and I think I still do that to this day, whether I'm, walking through a casino
Right.
and I go, I hear a song, I go, who is this? And, someone will say, oh, it's Taylor Swift. And I go, oh, it's a good
Mm,
song. I don't
mm.
necessarily actively seek it out, but it's, you can sort of recognize a well-written song.
Right.
But I think the band in and of itself is sort of like three guys who sort of have common ground in a lot of the stuff we grew up on. I think you're going to hear like a lot of Cheap Trick and things like that kind of spill out. But then there's a lot more very aggressive stuff on there as well that really kind of takes it to a whole other level.
Hmm.
But you know, then some of the delicate stuff, and I think there is some diverse stuff. Don't Tell Me I'm Wrong or Blame, those kind of songs sort of have a slightly different take on them than sort of just doing 10 versions of the same song, you know, which I
Hmm.
think is a something I try to avoid anyways, just as sort of like, you know, being able to kind of step away from just those
Right.
sort of, you know,
Right.
press play and it's sort of a different version of the
Sure.
same song. To me, it's kind of like it's nice to have some, you know, like as Led Zeppelin 3 or something like that, where there's like,
Hmm.
you know, immigrant song, but there's also,
Right.
a different versions of a slightly kind of more acoustic kind of numbers and stuff like that. So it's hard to
Hmm.
say really. I mean, Zeppelin's always sort of the touchstone in a way that I kind of, when I think about Led Zeppelin, you can't help but think of the sort of heavier aspects, but there are so many delicate moments with Led Zeppelin that you can't help but kind of go, yeah, that's all of that is what they sound like.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. I was going to ask you, I haven't heard this story, but I'm sure it's a pretty cool one. I remember catching one of your picks at one of the shows that you guys performed in Portland, Oregon, and it's got Dammit on there. What's the story behind that? I mean, I haven't heard it, but I'm sure you've told that many times before.
Well, but yeah, it's a fun one because Todd Dammit has always rhymed with God damn it, and it's sort
Yeah.
of one of those things that just sort of stuck. So when it's sort of wedged into Todd Dammit Kerns, it's a little bit more confusing or a little more sort of
Right.
disguised as to what the obvious reference is. But when I came to Vegas, it was sort of it was a full career reboot, really. It was like, having achieved all the things that I'd done in Canada and all the things that I'd sort of um uh, you know, uh, was no one cares. As soon as you come into another country, it's sort of like
Hmm.
they're not familiar with what you've done. There might be sort of like, oh, it's this Todd guy, he's done some stuff, I don't know. But the gag was just introducing myself as Todd Dammit on stage, and that kind of stuff was just for fun.
Hmm.
Vinnie Paul from Pantera was
Yeah.
a good friend of
Pantera.
ours. He loved the name and would scream it
Mm-hmm.
across casinos, and then Slash started introducing me as such, and that became
Mm-hmm.
kind of cemented in that. Then the T-shirts happened, and then
Right.
there's coffee, and there's all kinds of a weird little enterprise that
Right.
sort of continues to this day. But yeah, it's one of those weird things that just sort of like has kind of grown a life of its own.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. One of the a couple other things I wanted to touch on because I know Toque, the band Toque, you guys are
Yeah.
going to be
Good
on Monsters of Rock
pronunciation.
Cruise, and I can't wait to see it because I discovered you guys. I think when you did an appearance on Ed Trunk's show, and we're talking about the record, and I sought it out, picked it up, listened to it. Great, great way to kind of revisit some of the Canadian bands. I think Kim Mitchell, especially.
Yeah.
So you guys are going to be on the cruise. What kind of what do you guys doing in terms of for the set? Is it going to be? I know you guys have some new music. You have the covers record. Is it going to be a mix? Are you going to insert new covers? Any idea what you guys are going to do on that thing?
I think it'll be definitely a mix. I mean, we sort of been like really focusing on our own music
Hmm.
as time has sort of gone on, as is probably expected. I think most
Sure.
bands kind of eventually find their way into making their own music. But that said, the whole thing is built upon the entire premise of our homage to these
Right.
classic Canadian music that we grew up on, some of which is familiar perhaps to people
Right.
in the United States, and a lot of it sort of unfamiliar,
Hmm.
which is kind of fun for us too because it sort of really introduces the music as new music to a whole new
Hmm.
audience.
Right.
Um, so I think it'll probably be a mixture, and I think that's the best way to go about it. Is it's celebratory in the classics, and then like here's some of our music. Hope you enjoy.
Hmm. Man, you guys did a killer cover of Loverboy.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, yeah.
That's a killer tune. Okay. And new music for Toque, like what are we looking at there?
Well, I mean, that's the funny thing too, is during the pandemic, we were in a constant creative mode too. So there's been an ongoing bunch of new music and an intent to eventually at least release, whether it's an EP or an album, we're not sure yet. That's sort of an ongoing conversation. I'm sure you've been a part of it too, is people releasing music basically as, do we release it as a 45 with Hound Dog on one side and a B-side? You know, it's like, or do we release it like a full album with artwork? Guys like Slash will, you know, he just sort of, although Guns N' Roses has been releasing sort of singles here and there, the intention of recording an album, a collection of songs. Here's the artwork, that whole thing. We all grew up on that. That's what we all love. But is it really necessary? I don't know. But we're, so we do have new music kind of sort of, on the back burner, just waiting to deal with the schedules and all that kind of stuff too. So there's a Shania Twain tour about to happen, all that too. So we're not quite sure how that's all gonna play out. But we will, we'll cross these bridges when we get to them.
Nice. Okay. And you're also, this is what's really cool. I mean, I got a chance to talk to Bruce Kulick a while back, and he was totally geeked about, I think at the time he referred to you guys as the Mob, what members of Bruce's band. Yeah, right. Yeah. But, it sounds like you guys are still at it. You were on that Kiss cruise. I don't know if you were on both of them, right? There were 2 back-to-back cruises.
We were on both, yeah.
So tell me about that, because that's taken a life of its own as well.
It really has. I mean, 2017, we found ourselves. I mean, the first time I played with Bruce was 2010, oddly enough, for his CD release party on BK3 was the album. But 2017, we found ourselves. Bob Bob and Bruce, the Kulick brothers, were going to be performing, and myself and Brent Fitz kind of jumped in, and it was great. It was a real blast. We've since lost Bob, which is a tragic story. We brought in Zach Throne, who's an old friend and an incredible talent. And so we've been doing it ever since. We just did New Year's with Bruce, New Year's Eve and New Year's Eve.
Right.
And it's constantly fun. It's always a pleasure. I mean, if you're a Kiss nerd like me, what I learned on the Kiss cruise is you really can't dig deep enough. I mean, it's really like the gathering of fans are really, they love it deep. They love, you kind of going, you really can't think of anything. You'd be like, who wants to hear this? I mean, this is so obscure. And then you're like, nope, they want to hear it. They want to hear demos. We've done songs like Time Traveler and Sword and Stone, unreleased songs that never were released. Right. And people love it. It's like, we've been doing music from The Elder, that kind of stuff, like stuff that's, largely untouched by the guys, because it wouldn't make sense for them to really lean into a lot of that these days. But it's been a lot of fun. I mean, like I said, it's one of those weird things that people always say, you have so much on your plate, how do you make this all work? And I go, well, the Bruce thing is sort of intermittent. It happens when it happens. Right. And it's sort of like, it's not an ongoing thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's so much fun. As a Kiss fan, it's just, it's a blast.
Right. Where do you guys stand on that? Because again, the fans would go see that, at a theater or a casino gig or whatever. But would that make it less special, you think? Because you guys have been known to just kind of do these kind of sporadic appearances, and I think that kind of grows the thing even a little more, right? So I don't know. What's your take on that?
I think you're right. I think the fact that it's become so specialized makes it sort of its own thing. I mean, to be honest, we would, I think, and we have been sort of entertaining the idea, and here and there that will come up about like doing it here or doing it there. I think it's not like Kiss fans only exist on the Kiss cruise; they exist all over the world. So, and we get it all the time. Bring this to South America. Bring this to Australia. Bring this, bring it to the East Coast. It's sort of like, I think, of course, we probably would if we could. Again, it's scheduling. I mean, Bruce has been with Grand Funk for over 20 years. He's sort of, and the rest of us are all doing other things too. Zach now plays with Ace Frehley and Corey Taylor from Slipknot. So,
oh wow,
he's a very busy guy, and then Fitz and I both have our things going on. So it's great. I think that if the right thing presented itself, I think obviously we would lean into it and do it, because it would be, like I said, it's just so much fun. And we really enjoy each other's company, and that's the important thing. And hopefully it'll be, you never know. That's the thing, is you just never know. It's in this time next year, I could be like, we could be talking about that. Who knows?
Sure. Yeah. Right. Cool. Oh, last thing, as far as with Toque, Shane's going to be drumming, right, on the cruise?
Yes, well, that's the plan. That the funny thing is, it's you never know, because well, not so much lately, because Shane was such a big part of Ingve and all these different
Shanker. I've seen him with Shanker. Oh
there
my
you go.
gosh.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, but he played in this group called the Bees out of Tokyo, which they're like massive over there. So he often would be like pulled away to Japan, and we'd have to figure out how to do it without him. So, but currently that schedule isn't quite the same. So yeah, no, he's a monster talent.
Nice. Well, look forward to seeing you guys on the cruise. I'll be
Yeah,
on
you
there
too. Please come say hi.
Yeah, sure, for sure. And best with the record. It's pretty killer, man.
Thank you so much.
Sounding melodic hard rock. There you go.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's so much fun to do. It was so much fun to be a part of. So thank you so much.
All right. Well, we'll get all the social stuff on the links and get this passed on to PR. And best to you, and happy 2023.
Thank you so much, brother. Please come say hi on the cruise.
Yeah, I will. Thank you. Take care, huh?
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye.